We're here for part 2 of the series of making armor, right? I hope we're all here for the same thing. If not, you know, you're just here to hang out, whatever. But I'm Blair of Chaos Costumes, and I want to teach you more about Nomad and make something for myself. So without further ado, let's get started. So if you remember correctly, we made this sweet helm, but this helm needs more accessories. Let's make some pauldrons. I want to add my mannequin again of myself. You can see how to do it here. And then I'll use the origin sphere and use it as our first asset to make our pauldrons. So I'll just squish it a little bit. To make my life a little easier, I'm going to push my mannequin so it aligns. I'll rotate it downwards. I'm going to use the move tool, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the helmet, as we're going to push it asymmetrically so it has a little angle. Then I'll push it around to get the shape I want. Then I'll go in with the tube tool, and I'll have the offset set to 0. I'll just draw a tube and change the profile to a square. And with snapping enabled, I'm going to push this tube around. I find to have more control if I turn off B-spline. That'll make it a little bigger, but its ledge is a little too high for me. So I'll change the profile so it's sunken in a little bit. Keep pushing around this tube just so it meets in the middle, at least. I'll bring down the sharp node a little bit. I'll add a nice little crest for the middle. And since I had that previous tube selected, I don't have to make the profile again. I just want to make sure that this lines up to the center line, because we'll be forcing symmetry. That's why we're not really worrying about the back. But I hid the other tube, and I'm just going to make this one a little shorter so it tucks in, and then turn on the twist twice, just to get it to line up around the sphere. But I want to make sure it has a little peak in the middle. I don't like how close it's getting in the middle, so I'll just turn on the twist one more time so I have control over every node. Now I can show the first tube to see what I'm working with. I'll turn off snapping so I can push it up a little bit, but turning off the grid because I don't want it to snap to it. And I'll flare this one out, just so it's consistent. Now I'll increase the division on both of these shapes. I'll take all of those shapes and join them. Now I can go in with the move tool and just refine everything. I can go in and voxel mesh this all together, making sure to keep sharp edges. And then we can do the magical part, where we go by the Z-axis only, and we'll mirror it, just like that. Now it doesn't look weird and terrible. It actually looks like something we intentionally did. I'm seeing here the geometry is a little funky, so I'll just smooth that out. Now that I have the basic shape that I want, I'll move it around a little bit to manipulate the silhouette a smidge. Now I can shell it with the mask tool. So I'll just mask the whole thing and make the thickness of the shell -2.5 and extract that. Now we can hide our original shape, and I'll decimate the shell we just made. I can trim around the outside here, making sure to turn off auto validate and then go in with the polygon, just so I have the basic shape. We're just going to trim out the bottom of this pauldron. And looking at it solo, I'm realizing I missed a spot, so I'll just go in with the lasso tool and turn back on auto validate and get rid of this weird stringy funky geometry that happened. I don't know why it causes this bridging sometimes. At least I can trim it away. And I'm just going to trim away this little shelf that happened. Turn down the intensity and I'll smooth it down. Now that I have the first shape of the pauldron that I like, we're going to copy it. So I'm going to change the pivot so it's back here, so it's easier to move around where I want it. And then I'll clone it. And then once again, I'll clone it to make the third tier of this pauldron. And I'll change how wide it is. Then I'll go in with the trim tool, because we don't really need all of this nonsense back there. Same with the third tier. And then I'll go in with the line trim tool after the rectangle, just to trim it at an angle a little bit. I'll try to get it to match up to the edges a little better by changing its width with the gizmo. Trimming out this weird geometry here and just making this a little nicer. I can insert a connection point, and I'll just use a cylinder. You could probably do this a lot more scientifically and it snaps in like a Lego, but my little brain does not function like that. Not easily. I have to print a lot of iterations before I can get it to work. Now that I have the cylinder placed, I'll push it around a little bit so it's centered. And make it so it's not touching the pauldron part below it. And I'll solo that piece and trim out a little hole. But I want to make sure support doesn't build inside the hole. So I'm going to rotate it just so it's facing upwards, where I want it supported. And then I'll just go in with the mirror on the Z-axis and push it over. I'm just going to do the same thing to the top part. And I'll solo it and add a cylinder approximately where I want it. And just shrinking it down, making sure there's no collision with the two parts. And I'll solo it again and trim out a little hole. And once again, I'll rotate it a smidge, just so I don't need support to build inside of that hole. Now I'll cut out little holes in the piece below it. Same with this piece. Now, I'm going to need something to hold up these pauldrons, so I'm going to make a gorget. I think that's how you say it. So I'm just going to start with a sphere, increase the post subdivision, just so it's nice and smooth, validate it, and then push it around real big with the move tool. I realize it's giving me a hunchback. So I'll just move everything back. So my neck is in the center of the sphere. Now I can move it around with a little less difficulty. And I'll turn off symmetry and push it off to the side. So when I go to make it symmetrical, I have a nice little peak in the middle. And with the backside. Now I can go in and add tubes like we did with the pauldrons. With snapping enabled, we start around the neck, change the profile by shrinking down that little square a little bit. Then I'll twist the tube just so it aligns with the neck. And turn off B-spline because that's not really helping me in this situation. I just have to make sure my nodes align nicely. Realizing it's a little bulbous back here, so I'll tuck that in. Now I'll hide that top little pauldron piece just so I can see what I'm doing. And I'll add a border around the bottom with the tube. I'll change the profile to a square and make it a little narrower. And I'll twist it so it lines up. I'll just scooch this up a little bit. Fix this part a little bit that clipped inside. And now that I'm happy with it, I'll join it. And then do that little trick with the symmetry. And then we have a perfect little gorget. I think that's how you say it. I'm questioning myself constantly about it, but I think it's French. and I think it's gorgeous. Now I'll just move these little parts and tuck them in a little bit. Since I just joined them and didn't voxel remesh them, I can do this. Now that I'm happy with it, I can voxel remesh it together, keeping sharp edges. And then I can move it all together, create a better silhouette and a better connection point to these pauldrons. Then you can mask the whole thing and extract it, hide your original shape, and decimate it, just so it calculates a little faster. Now we can solo it and go in and trim. The reason why you do it in this order is if you trimmed it before you shelled it, it makes really ugly edges. Then you have to fix, and it's really not worth the workflow. I'm seeing that it made some weird geometry, so I'll just force a fix in that and mirror it. I'll just trim out the back half. This trick using the lasso tool without it validating and then switching to the polygon is so nice. I have it pretty much trimmed out, but I want to clean it up a little bit. Now we'll go in and cut out the neck hole. Since I have symmetry toggled, I don't really need to worry about both sides. Oh, I have a nice little gorget. Gorget. What did I say? Is it gorget? Oh my gosh. I did it again. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure it out later. But I'll just voxel remesh this, keeping sharp edges, just to get rid of the sparkly geometry in the front. And I'll just clean it up a little bit, just so it's not sharp. I'm getting feral and lazy about this little edge, so I'm just gonna go in with the move tool real tiny and kind of fix that up, just so it's not super lumpy. And I'll smooth that out, just so it's more comfortable. Making sure to actually have the front-facing vertex only filter on. There we go. Now I can smooth out the inside. Now that I have everything smoothed out, I'm gonna make the move tool real big just so I have a little bit more contact with the pauldrons. Get rid of this big gap here. I want to make sure it fits on my print bed, so I measured it. And yep, that will fit. Excellent. Since I can print it in one piece, I'm just going to add a little split back here, so it has a little give. And hopefully I can fit it over my cranium. Now I can go in and add attachment points to the pauldron. By just inserting a cylinder, soloing it, and cutting a hole out the middle, like I did the other parts. I'll hide my head that's in the way. And add the same shape again with the insert tool and instance. And it's a lot easier to make repeats of that shape. So once again, I'll select the shape that I want, instance it by inserting it. And there we go, just like that. I have 2 points where I can tie string, because that is my solution, is string. And I'll rotate these guy a little bit, and make them a little smaller so they fit nicely. Now I'll mirror the pegs I just made. I'm realizing it's building them everywhere. It's because I instanced them. So I just have to uninstance them. And then I won't have that problem anymore. So I'll force symmetry, and there we go. It just made 1 and not 3. Same with this little guy. And I'll just select all of that nonsense and join it. And then same with these guys. Realize I only made 1 peg on that side. So I'll just clone that, and then I'll flip the object and move it to where it needs to be. And then I'll take all of those shapes and I'll join them. And with this section, but then realizing that one of the pegs is off-centered. I don't know how that happened. It's probably my fault, and I don't know what happened. It was probably rotation-based. And then I'll join everything. Observe what I'm working with. And it looks like I should probably remesh these just to get rid of the weird geometry that's happening. I'll decimate it just so it's not enormous. And there's still some random geometry in there. I don't know how to fix that, but when I go to repair it in Bamboo Slicer, it should fix it. But while I'm here, I'll just smooth the inside. This spot is not responding to me. Come here, you little bastard. Yeah, I'll turn off my front-facing vertex only and smooth you out, yeah. Now what are you gonna do? Also, you can like zoom out really fast by clicking a little square up here. And once again, I guess I'll have to remesh this. Keeping sharp edges. And I can smooth it out. And I'll decimate it, just so it's not enormous. There's not a lot of detail in these, so it doesn't need a lot of mesh for it to be smooth. Can't stress enough that you need to decimate your models before you export them. I mean, you don't need to, but your computer will be happier. But let's name stuff. This middle part is the gorget. A gorget. God damn it. And that's Pauldron 3. Pauldron 2. And I can get rid of this overarching empty menu. And Pauldron 1. Now I can export the selected object. Let's slice this bad boy. So I'm going to add all my pieces. Select no. And we're going to make a total of 3 plates for this. I'll just move the first part of the pauldron over and rotate it. I just want it to print marginally vertically. And I'll rotate this little guy, and realizing it'll probably not fit next to the top part of the pauldron, but that's okay. I'll bring this one down here to that plate as well. And rotate it vertically like that as well. Now I can just kind of tuck them into each other. I'll repair that one pauldron section. So we'll take one piece at a time. We'll clone it, and then I'll mirror it on the y-axis. Can't tell the difference from the top, but from the bottom you can see the pegs are offset on opposite sides. And I'll just tuck that in there. I'll line those up because OCD, it must be perfect. And now I can move on to the next plate. So I'll clone that piece, wonder where it went, and realize that the plate I have selected is where it goes. That little guy over here. And I think they're pretty symmetrical. I just want to make sure there's no collisions between the two pieces. But I want them to be a little bit more vertical so I can fit more stuff on the plate. Now I just have to clone this last piece. And I'll take everything on this plate and rotate it diagonally. Now I'll just repair the gorget. God damn it. One of the two pronunciations. I'll see if I can get away with rotating it a smidge, just so that top edge isn't as pronounced. I'll move it back a little bit. And center it. Now for my quality, I want to make sure my seams are aligned. For strength, I want 3 walls with lightning infill. I don't mess with the speed, and we want to make sure it builds support, so we'll enable the support. And for the brim, I'm going to try something different. I'll do an inner and outer brim of 10 millimeters. I'll slice it and see what I'm working with. Looks pretty good to me. And I'll slice the top part of the pauldrons Looking good, looking good. And then the rest of the pauldrons. Pretty satisfied with them. Hopefully this will be a nice and simple print. And there won't be any problems. Crossing my fingers and hoping it turns out perfect the first time. Come on, printer, work your magic. we have made round 2 of the armor, allegedly, apparently, according to my assumptions of what I'm going to do next in the next few months. But I hope you guys like the video, and if you do truly like what you see, hit the like button. If you have any random words of encouragement or suggestions, comment down below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Every little bit helps the algorithm. Also, you like my claws? They've become a thing. That's just a thing now that I'm going to wear forever until I get bored of it. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.